You will be amazed at how many clues I found for one family in the 1880 census. We're going to get started right now. I think you're really going to like this. This is going to be a lot of fun. So if you want to play along, there are links for both the Ancestry and the FamilySearch versions in the description box on the YouTube channel and probably in the newsletter as well. So here's the thing. Now, I'm going to show you all the clues that I found, but I'm not going to tell you how many clues I found until the end. So if you want to play along, pause the video, go grab this exact page and see if you can count up how many clues you can find in this for this one family. This is Exum Davis. As you can see right here, there he is, Exum Davis and his family. How many clues can you find for this one ancestor on this one page and this one family? We're not talking about the neighbors. We're not talking about the fan club. That's a whole other strategy, right? But so point being is pause right now, go get the handout, count them up, see how many clues you can come up with, and then come back. Now, keep in mind, this is a great learning experience. So if you are playing along, I would love to know in the comment sections before we go any further, how many clues you found when you stopped and counted them all up. So we're going to get started right now. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're not going to take a look at the family. We are going to the top of the page, and it helps if I can see what I'm doing. There we go. Okay, so at the top of the page, all of this information is clues. Now, I know that we might want to call them facts, but I'm calling them clues, okay? Really, the page number in ED is information we need for our source citations. One of the things you want to pay attention to, it says, Note A, the census year begins on June 1st, 1879 and ends on May 31st, 1880. This is important. This is actually a clue. This is important because when we have the ages of the person listed in a census record, it helps us determine within 365 days when a person's birth date happened. Okay, I want to point out one other thing. Note B here. It says all persons will be included in the enumeration who were living on the first day of June 1880. No others will. Children born since June 1st, 1880 will be omitted. Members of family who have died since June 1st, 1880 will be included. So if you'll notice down here, it says that this was enumerated by me on the 7th day of June, 1880. So that means anyone born between the dates of June 1st, 1880 and the 7th day of June, 1880, those children will be omitted. Moving on. Note C, questions number 13, 14, 22, and 23 are not to be asked in respect for persons under the age of 10. Now, when we go look at what 13, 14, 22, and 23 are. 13 is about occupation. 14 is the number of months a person has been unemployed, so that makes sense, right? Because they're under 10 years old, they're not working. 22 is cannot read, and 23 is cannot write. Well, that might make sense also for children who haven't learned to read and write yet. All right, so now we know the rules at the top of the page. Okay, so now we're paying attention to where we are. So we're in the township or it just says inhabitants. Sometimes it says township or city or whatever, of Corning in the county of Clay in the state of Arkansas. It is page 16. I believe that might be an A up there. In fact, let's go look. Let's go to the next page. Yes, there's a B right there. So that is also part of our source citation, is to note that it is page 16A. Okay? So now we've got a lot of the information that we need from our source citation. We have our location. We know the year, 1880. We know the exact date being the 7th of June. Now we're ready to look at the family. I know that some of that top matter may be boring, but it's important because it'll help you slice and dice some of the clues a little bit later, depending on the census record that you're working with. So in this case, here we are. We don't have a street number. We don't have a house number, but we do have a dwelling number and a family number. Dwelling number and family number 31, they both happen to match in this case. They don't always. And again, that's part of your source citation if you're writing professional source citations. All right, so we have Exum Davis. There's a clue. He's white, he's male, he's 52 years old. So if we are looking at those birth dates, if he's 52 years old on June 1st, 1880, his birth year is about 1828. That gives us a birth year. Now we could really slice and dice it really down into those 365 days based on the census year if we want to know exactly within the time frame. We could figure that out. He is married. He is a farmer. 1 month unemployed. Interesting. How can you be unemployed as a farmer? Maybe it's the winter months. He cannot read and he cannot write. Now, this brings me to another clue. We'll talk about that here in a second. He is born in North Carolina. His father was born in North Carolina and his mother's born in North Carolina. Bear with me. We've got some interesting clues here. So Exum Davis is the head of this household. You can tell that because of the dwelling number and the family number is next to his name, okay? And every other relationship that we have in here is the relationship to the head of the household and no one else. That in itself is going to be important information to know as we're starting to figure some of this out. Elizabeth, that is either an A or an M. I can't tell. You could come down here and look and see what they say it is. The person who indexed this said it's an M. Keep in mind that is not always correct on the indexing. So if that is Elizabeth M, that's fine. White, female, 53 years old. Again, Elizabeth Davis at 53 years old. That means she was born about 1827 and she is his wife. She is married, as they both are, and she is keeping house. She's born in North Carolina. Her father is from Virginia, which if you'll notice in this family, that is the only not North Carolina person in this group. So that might be a clue as well. Mother is born in North Carolina. All right, moving back. We have Elizabeth Rowland, different last name in the same household. You can tell because there's no new dwelling number here. White female. That says 22 or 23. That gives us an approximate birth year. She is the daughter and she is a widow. So this is interesting news. She's either 22 or 23. Kind of looks like a 22. If she's 22 and she's already a widow, what happened to her husband? Interesting, right? Then we continue on. So this goes in chronological order of the children. So that is the daughter of Exum. It does not mean she's the daughter of Elizabeth. Keep that in mind. So I'm trying to kind of bend the way you think, because it would be assumed by most that Elizabeth up here is the mother of this Elizabeth Rowland. Not necessarily so. What if Exum had previously married? Okay. All we know is what we have in front of us. All right. Then we have Wiley J. Davis, who's a white male. He's 20 years old. He is the son and he is single. Everybody else after that is single. We have Angelina. We have Caroline. We have Louisa. We have Margaret, and we have William P. That's an abbreviation, WM for William. And if we notice some of these relationships here, Louisa is the granddaughter at 14 years old. So each one of these, by the way, these ages gives us a clue to the birth year, right? They're all white, so that's consistent. So this granddaughter here, Louisa, is the granddaughter at 14 years old. Where are the parents? It's not Elizabeth Rowland, because Elizabeth is 22 or 23 years old, which means she would have been a child at the time this child was born. So the parents are not here, which brings more questions as to where are the parents of Louisa? What other clues can we infer from that? We can also infer that there are older children of Exum and possibly of Elizabeth and Exum, because there are grandchildren in the household. There's a granddaughter and a grandson. William is a grandson. And this 11-year-old, even if Elizabeth Rowland was the mother, she would have been, what, 11 years old when she had William? Not likely. So more than likely, that tells us, gives us some more clues that Exum and possibly Exum and Elizabeth have older children, possibly more than one. It could be that Louisa and William are siblings, but we don't know that. So here is some more interesting information. If you take a look at William, he's 11 years old in 1880, which means he was born about 1869. He was born in North Carolina, which means that this family migrated to Arkansas between 1869 and 1880. There's a migration here. Okay, remember we were paying attention to some of the rules at the top of the page. Now we're going to pay attention to some of the rules at the bottom of the page because it provides us more clues about this family. So if we note here, it says, note D, in making entries in column 9, 10, 11, 12, 16 to 23 in the affirmative mark only will be used thus, with the exception of a case of divorce where a person in column 11 would be marked with a D. Okay, so we're going to go to the top of the page and take a look at that. Okay, so columns 9 through 12 have to do with marital status, single, married, widowed, or married within the census year. Okay, so 16 through 23 have to do with disabilities. 21 through 23 have to do with whether they attended school in the last census year, whether they cannot read and cannot write. So remember, these markings are in the affirmative. So if there is a check mark here, that means that they cannot read or write. Well, what does that tell us? That also tells us that if our family down here is not checked, they can read and write. So the only person in this household really who cannot read and write is Exum Davis. Margaret down here, she's listed as having attended school. So she can read and write. She just has attended school, which I thought was also interesting. She's 13 years old. She's attending school, but the 14-year-old is not. The 16-year-old is not. More interesting information for your family history. One more thought about Margaret here. So she's 13 years old on June 1st in 1880. That means her birth date would be between June 1st, 1866 and May 31st, 1867. If the informant who gave the year of her, that she's 13 years old, gave the correct information, then that would be the case, that she would be born between June 1st, 1866 and May 31st, 1867. It's a little tricky to do the math sometimes, but you can figure this out. So long story short, you could do the same calculation for everyone in the family and figure out roughly, those birth dates between point A and point B based on the information that's at the top of the page on the 1880 census. Okay, so there's a lot to learn from all of the little clues that we've gotten on this page, including the fact that we're in Corning, Clay County, Arkansas, which was a brand new county. It had only been in existence for about 7 years. It was born in 1873, so it's a fairly new county. Also, doing a little bit more history research, not included on this page, but just some extra tips here, is there was a new railroad in the area that came down from St. Louis. So migration patterns were starting to get easier. And so there's just a lot of great information. You could look up the weather and find out what the weather was like in the local newspapers during the time that, your family was having this enumeration taken, if you want to go add some flavor and color to your family history. So there's a lot of really great clues that we can find in the census. Now, we didn't even look at the family in the, like on other pages. I do want to point out that this was image number 1. So we could not have gone to the left at all because this was the first image on this roll. But we could go to the right and see if there's any other Davis family or Rowland family in subsequent pages. That was not part of this exercise, but that's some of the strategies that you want to do to try and find other family members that may be living nearby. All those questions that came up, that would be my next step, is what happened to Elizabeth Rowland's husband? That's just interesting to me that she is a widow at 22 years old. So, that would be one of the first things that I go look for. See if there's maybe a newspaper article or something, a marriage record for her and him, and find out how long she'd actually been married. I don't think she had any children because they're not living in the household with her, but there are other grandchildren in the household. So where are their parents? And if so, that means Exum and possibly Elizabeth, the wife, had more children. So lots of things to look for. In all, here's the big reveal. In all, I found 100 clues in this record. And so I hope you found the same. But that's how many I found. As a reminder, there is a handout for this. If you want all the details that I found in this record, you can get the handout in the normal places. There's a link in the description box below with the 3 different ways that you can get the handouts. There are 3 ways you can get the handouts. Now, the first way is to join the channel membership here at the information access level channel membership on the YouTube channel, and then go to the community tab and you'll find the posts that have the handout links in there. All you have to do is follow the link and download the handouts. Okay, now the second way is over at Patreon. Now at Patreon, if you're at the Happy Dance level or higher, you can get the handouts those come directly to you in an email every time we announce the new video that has a handout with it. You'll also get early release with that membership. All right, and then the third way is just to go over to genealogytv.org and click on the handouts tab, and you can find all the handouts there for individual purchase. So I hope that was helpful. The handouts really do support the channel, and for that, I thank you. I hope that was helpful. Hopefully you took away something that you hadn't seen before, because I'm really trying to get you to think outside what we assume, because a lot of times there's a lot of assumptions that come along when we are looking at records, and really it's detective work and we're dealing with just the facts. So, all right, we'll catch you in the next video.